I'm Tom from Do-It-Yourself Home Automation, and this is a look at the Geyiie, Geyiie carrier truck toy. Geyiie was kind enough to send me one of these to check out, and I'm going to share some impressions of using it here. And I really like this. I think it's a cool toy for a toddler, slightly older kid, and I'll get into the exact reasons why, and also impressions from starting to use it. So basically this is a truck toy, and the first part of it is just this actual truck. You put these decals on the side of it, and your kid can play with this just as basically like almost like a garbage truck or a big rig. It's kind of reminiscent of trucks from some Disney movies that I won't say the name of, but it definitely is something that's fun just to use in and of itself. But then the really cool thing is that this opens up and folds out into this whole sort of imaginary space with a racetrack inside of it. So firstly, they can just play with it like that, and then you can just open this little top piece here, and I'll show how this actually folds out and goes together. Okay, so I just open this clasp, and then I can show you this folds out. Just snap these sides off. And then this comes out into this whole sort of imaginary space that you put together. So everything is contained inside of the truck. And then we just take this ramp and we can start to attach these little pieces on. And I'll just pause and put it all together. Okay, so there it is with everything put together. These just snap in. And you can see it forms this whole sort of imaginary little racetrack space with a lot of different components to it. Everything is plastic and pretty easy to put together. And it comes with this weird robot who sort of moves his hands around. I think he's directing traffic, as it says, drive slowly, drive carefully underneath him. And then you get these little die-cast cars. And I was actually happy with the quality of these. It's actually a little metal, tiny die-cast car. You can see it in the size of my thumb here, so it's very tiny. That brings up an important point. These would definitely be a choking hazard for a younger kid. So I think this is good for a toddler, probably a kid 3 years or older, somebody where they're not going to try to put things in their mouth. So I wouldn't use it for a 2-year-old, but as long as your kid is definitely not going to try to swallow anything, since these are pretty tiny, it makes a great toy. And I think it's great because the scale of the cars is more appropriate for their small hands at that age versus a larger die-cast car where it can be a little bit big to play with and also a little bit dangerous if it gets thrown. These are metal. The construction seems like pretty good quality, but they're also pretty light. So if they end up flying around, it's unlikely to cause as much damage as a full kind of die-cast car. So the space inside here, there's a bunch of different components to it. Assembly is a little bit, just takes a little bit of getting used to, but basically you're just putting a lot of stickers on, and there's instructions of where to put the decals on the inside here. And you can see it creates a pretty colorful environment with these different road surfaces, a beach area. It's kind of like an aerial view of a city that you end up with here. Like you're looking, down on top of a city. This little section here is a gas station. So you can see pumps and a little entrance, the top of the roof there. Again, these parking lots, there's a little area where the cars can actually park underneath the robot here. And then there's a couple of different kind of active elements to the track. So the first one is this little ramp up here. And you can see you can actually just lever it up and then put a car on top. And your kid can experiment with putting that there. And then when they press this lever, it just launches it down and it can race out there. And you can do multiple cars and race them down the ramp and see which one goes furthest, let them crash into each other. But it's a nice little use of a pretty simple mechanism and gravity to launch cars down that ramp. It's great to count down and then launch them. I find my kid really enjoys doing that. So that's one active component to it. You can also do some more sort of imaginary play with the robot here, and the cars coming out and parking, kind of simulates things that kids probably see, frequently see you doing. And there's different designs to these cars. So you have something that's more like almost like a PT Cruiser or something here, and then more kind of sports cars or performance cars. So you have a range, and obviously the colors, the nice vibrant colors are nice there. Kids can drive these down the ramp. The gas station, if your kid is at the age where they're doing imaginary play, that's been popular here in our house. And just the way that this fades from more of a city environment with the skyline and a road, and then you have the aerial view of a swimming pool, and then to the beach. And it's kind of fun, I think, for them to imagine the cars going out onto the sand and then out onto the water here. And then on the other side, you have a view like you're looking at with sailboats and everything. So it kind of creates this little environment. And if your kid is old enough to do pretend play, then it's actually kind of a nice thing. The robot adds a little personified element to it. So if you want to have him move around and look and speak, that's kind of a nice added component to it. And then there's one more active element to this that I think is kind of cool and is the easier one to set up. So if you're just going to play with your kid with this for a little bit and you don't want to set up the whole ramp system, this one is kind of nice. You just pop this top piece off here, and then you actually pop off the front. It kind of looks, actually, I'm thinking, like a fire truck on the front. And this just opens up here. And it creates this little ramp coming out and a little ramp on the top, and then they can actually take a car and launch it out the front too. So it creates a whole other little ramp structure that they can experiment with and play with. And then I think, the final thing that's nice with this is, again, because it all folds up, it's sort of a perfect travel thing. Because you have this whole self-contained little environment. There's pretend play, there's some gravity play here. You can have more personification with the robot, and ramp out the front. The cars themselves, they can play with these, separately from the rest of the set. There's the element of going to the gas station, kind of daily activities, and then everything just folds and compresses into this one unit. So if you're traveling and you just want to take one toy, you can basically take 5 or 6 really in this unit that then they can fold out. And obviously, since it then does fold up into a truck, that's another thing they can play with. So again, kind of a neat little imaginary environment, again, that folds up into a pretty small package. So again, if you're traveling or you're just living in a small space and you don't have room to have big toy assemblies all over the floor, this literally folds up into one unit, and then you can park it in a small space and when you're not using it. And that actually has been a hit, putting it all back together and taking it all back apart again. It's almost like a transformer toy or something in that sense, because you get this whole environment that then goes into one truck, which, as you saw in the beginning, you can just push around and use as its own separate toy. So this is about $20 on Amazon, available with Prime shipping. And I've just found it to be, fun. We've had a lot of a good use out of it so far in our house. If you found this helpful in any way, please subscribe to my channel. It really helps.